A new centre-right government was announced in France as left-wing demonstrators took to the streets protesting the government they say rejects voters' will.
Voters are heading to the polls to cast their ballots at the Brandenburg state election.
A new centre-right government dominated by centrists and conservatives was announced by the French presidential palace. The announcement came more than 2 months following elections that produced a hung parliament and deepened political divisions within the country. A left-wing coalition secured the most seats in the June-July parliamentary elections, but failed to win a majority. Earlier this month, French President Emmanuel Macron named Conservative Michel Barnier as Prime Minister, despite his party's poor showing in the elections. Barnier put together the new government following difficult negotiations. Macron approved and the announcement was made. France is a leading voice in EU policy, one of the world's biggest economies, and a nuclear-armed, veto-wielding member of the UN Security Council. Its government makeup and direction is therefore very important.
An explosion in a coal mine in eastern Iran killed at least 52 workers and injured 17 others, local sources said on Sunday. The disaster marks one of the worst mining incidents in the country's history, as others remained missing hours after the blast. Weeping miners stood alongside mine cars that brought up the bodies of their colleagues, all covered in coal dust. The Iranian Red Crescent Society is working on rescuing those still trapped below the surface. Authorities blamed the blast on a leak of methane gas. Such gases are common in mining, though modern safety measures call for ventilation and other measures to protect workers. It wasn't immediately clear what safety measures were in place at the mine in Tabas.
German voters are casting their ballots in the Brandenburg state election. Around 2 million people are expected to vote in the decisive election, which could give the anti-immigrant Alternative for Germany party more parliamentary seats. The AfD saw landslide wins in Thuringia and Saxony in recent weeks. The popularity of the controversial group threatens to topple Chancellor Olaf Scholz's centre-left Social Democrats, which has ruled the state since 1990 reunification. The rise of the AfD also poses an existential risk to the traffic light coalition in the Bundestag. Brandenburg Premier Dietmar Woidke of the SPD party announced his intention to step down if the AfD wins. In the previous Brandenburg state election, the SPD secured 26% of the votes, followed narrowly by the AfD with 23%. Polls will close at 6 p.m. on Sunday, with immediate exit polls to follow.
A biodiversity initiative launched by nature and environmental protection groups in Switzerland did not succeed in a referendum held on Sunday. Over 60% of voters rejected the idea, which aimed to increase green spaces untouched by human development. Switzerland is renowned for its pristine lakes and majestic alpine peaks, but its plant and animal life is under great threat. The initiative called for public funding to encourage farmers to set aside lands and waterways to help wild landscape develop. It also would have prohibited the construction of new railway lines through protected dry meadows. Proponents pointed to threats to Switzerland's bees, frogs, birds, and other wildlife, as well as dwindling natural resources. The federal government and many rural voters opposed the plan, arguing it was too expensive. 630 million euros is already spent on biodiversity protection each year. Another proposal on pension reforms was also rejected in Sunday's referendums. The plan would have required employers and workers to raise their contributions into compulsory occupational funds, an idea widely opposed by unions. Referendums take place 4 times a year in Switzerland, far more often than any other European country.